Hello, hello, Reality Sandwich community. We are back for another Share Your Experience episode. And today I am joined by Edward Crowe. Edward, thank you so much for being here today. I'm stoked to get into this with you.
Thank you for having me, Holly. I appreciate you. This is awesome.
Oh yeah. I'm glad we got connected because your story is one that a transformational psilocybin experience that turns into acts of service to me is just like so talks about the spirit of the medicine in a way. Like I feel like the medicine wants us to be sharing its messages, and like you got the call and you're like, oh hell yeah, I'm on this. So we'll get into that, but take a minute to introduce yourself. Tell us a little about who you are, what you do, where you are in the world.
My name is Edward Crowe. I'm predominantly a music executive. I manage a couple artists. Yellow Wolf is my main artist that I manage. I've been doing that for about 6 years. Before that, I was a tour manager, tour photographer, sold merchandise. So we toured all over the world. About to go back out on a nationwide tour in November. And I stay busy, man, with the music business, cigars. We launched a cigar brand last year in February at Smoke and O's in Wilkes-Barre, PA, called Murder Cigars. It's called Murder because my name is Edward Crowe, and a group of crows is a murder, like a flock of birds. Play on words. It's doing really well. We're excited about that, and we just got a lot of creative projects in the works. LSD blotter art we do every year.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, man, we stay busy, and I like to be creative alongside of the business. You know what I mean? The business is great, and I'm good at it, but I have to balance it out with creativity.
Yeah. I like the blotter art idea. I love blotter art. I have some framed in my home that are just like special pieces to me, but I feel like I don't see this often, aside from like I'm at a music festival or something, but like who's making all the sweet blotter art? So that's cool. I'll have to check out what
I
you're
gotta
working
send you some. I'll send you some of the blotter art out.
Yeah,
It's
that's
out really cool. We're excited about it, and every time we do it, I just remember growing up. When we would all get our LSD or whatever as kids, it would come, and a lot of times it would be really cool looking. To have some good art on there, and so for me, it's nostalgic. Obviously, the blotter art we sell is just artwork. You know what I mean? There's nothing on it, but
yeah.
it is. It's all very meaningful. It all has a lot of symbolism. I like to leave a lot of the symbolism to the person viewing it to see, do they pick up on it or get their own interpretation. But that's a lot of this with the blotter art for me personally is the creative aspect and the Easter eggs that we put in these things that have meaning to them. So
Yeah.
it's a bit esoteric and a bit psychedelic. But at the end of the day, it's all a good message.
I love that. So take me back. You said, obviously you've had some experience with LSD and maybe other substances when you were younger. Like when did you first encounter psychedelics? And do you have like a first encounter memory or something that stood out to you as like, okay, that was fucking sweet?
I remember the first time I took mushrooms. I don't remember the first time I took LSD. It all kind of blends together. But
Hmm.
but I remember many, many experiences with LSD. And growing up, I would say from like 15 to on, it was very, very present. And it was, I don't have a lot of memories of the first time, but mushrooms, the first time I did them, is when I bought a bunch of them thinking I could sell them because I used to sell weed back in the day. And I went it strictly as a profitable situation, which is definitely not the right way to go about it, but I didn't know any other way.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up getting stuck with a lot of them, long story short, and that put me in a position to have to eat them myself. And I became really familiar and, bumped my head on a spiritual experience where I was in the bathroom getting sick after eating like a half an ounce, not knowing what I'm doing. And this portal in reality opened up. I've talked about it many times, but it's like this translucent portal opened up. This Indian goddess was dancing behind it, and I wanted to go inside. And when I said in my mind, I didn't say it out loud. When I said in my mind, I want to go there, it felt like she let me know telepathically, if you come here, you die there. When I felt the fear, the thing vanished. It just went away, and then the hallucination was over. And that was the first time that I realized, wait a minute, I think there's something more to this. You know what I mean? So,
Like aside from wow, my bathroom's weird right now, there's
right,
something else.
exactly. There was another thing I feel like mentioning right now is years ago, my mother had bought me, this is just another hat tip to psilocybin, but my mother had bought me a Yoruba tribe shaman's medicine cabinet from a local museum in Carthage, Tennessee that was going out of business. And neither one of us knew what the Yoruba tribe was. I had never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. And she bought it. It's just really cool, hand carved, one off piece. And I went to Europe on tour and I put the mushrooms I did have in this cabinet, not really on purpose or for any specific spiritual reason or anything like that. Put it in there, and then I got in an Uber to go to the airport. And in the Uber, the man driving was asking me, small talk, where are you going, where are you headed, where are you from, that type of thing. I asked him the same thing. And while he was driving, he turned around and he said, I'm from a place you may have heard of. And he kind of went like this. He said, called Yoruba. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And he said something in the language, and he said that it was, may God watch over you on your journey. So I had him say it into my phone for me. So I had a record of this really happening. And then went to Europe, came back, and I did a journey, and I was in the bathroom on the floor, and my fiance like takes notes and records what I say and will ask me questions when the time is right, building on this, trying to figure out what's going on in my mind. And at one point I fell back and I said, who is that? And she said, it's just me. But at that moment, I was surrounded by what appeared to be tribal African people with shaved heads and tribal gear on. And it could have been in the future, they could have been in the past. And it felt like I was either being born or dying. And, these things are crazy because it's like, is it all in your head or is it something actually going on outside of yourself? I don't know. You know what I mean? And I don't know that it even matters. I just know that if there's a message coming in and you're able to integrate that message and put it out into the world and be a better version of yourself, then hey, it's all worth the ride.
Yeah, right. Yeah, where it's coming from doesn't matter, landed there for you right now. So yeah, you're gonna listen or not, that's our personal responsibility.
Right, right.
Um okay, so that first experience you were mentioning, like not really knowing what you were getting into. After that, so now you're like hip to the game of like, okay, there's more to this than just like getting high on mushrooms. Did you have another experience after that that was like, okay, I want to be more intentional about this? Like, is that where it flipped? Like, okay, I want to see what this can offer me aside from just, eating mushrooms? Like, how did that
A
evolution
little
happen?
bit. I was a little reckless going in, I think, and it took a lot of commitment and sticking with it, a lot of quote unquote bad trips, you know what I mean? But nowadays these things aren't so bad anymore. They're more just difficult. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. But when I went in, no, I mean it took a long, long, long time, and then I started feeling more serious about it. And a couple times I had done big dose with 3, 4 other people. All of a sudden, that started to feel like the wrong thing to do, the wrong approach. I felt like I needed to go, if not all by myself, one other person only, because I feel like psychologically, and not even on purpose, people can gang up on each other. You know what I mean? Like, and it's unintentional. It doesn't really hold any weight, but it tends to happen. And I like to be very careful of that, right? When you go extremely high dose. Then I started doing it all by myself. Like I said, with my fiance would watch over me and take notes, and we would be really intentional about the message. We were doing like psychedelic archaeology. We're working on a book called Hello from Another Lifetime, Psychedelic Archaeology. And it may take 5 years, but yeah, it was just over time. And then I was doing it by myself in a bathroom inside next to the toilet. You know what I mean? You would have to purge so much on high dose that it's necessary to be right next to the toilet. But after that, I moved outside. And now it gets a little difficult because in the wintertime in Tennessee, I can't really go outside and do these experiences. Obviously, it's too cold. You know what I mean? But I took it outside and I haven't went back inside yet. I have a very sacred space that I go to. And it's just been I've been doing this for at least 15 years, a long, long, long time. And like I said, it's evolved over time, and now it's evolved into a full ceremony. And I like to make it clear that one, safety is important. A lot of the things that I do have taken years to get to, and I wouldn't encourage someone who's just tiptoeing into this idea to take the same approach. And three, like we said earlier, if it's coming from within or coming from without, it doesn't really matter. It's all about what you take from the experience. You know what I mean? And I think it's important for me personally to draw that line in the belief system. You know what I mean? Knowing that I don't necessarily believe this is from outside myself. I don't believe that it's not. I'm just here for the ride.
Well, I mean, that's a good approach, I think, to any psychedelic experience. Like, I talk to people a lot too who are like, what can I do to prepare? And I'm like, have zero expectations.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know, lower the bar of what you think you should do or shouldn't do because whatever's meant to happen will. So just be open to
That's
be
right.
ready for that.
Right.
And
I say
I,
let go, let go. You know what I mean? If you can let go and go with the flow, sometimes that's difficult.
mhm.
And it
Oh,
doesn't even make sense when you're in that space. Sometimes, like, what do you mean let go? You know what I mean? It's like it's difficult to understand what that even means. But
mhm.
just letting it happen to you and understanding, if you can, I don't want to use the word control, but maybe curate your environment. As we all know, set and setting, but
Mhm.
curate your environment. I do go in with a very specific intention. I take the intention very serious. I meditate first. It's all about respect for me, for the medicine, for the mushroom, and those are the most important things to me. And then integration, obviously.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to come back to the integration piece, but I want to go back to you had mentioned something about kind of being in group settings, and I can really resonate with that. And I understand maybe like an ayahuasca ceremony or something that where the group almost like hums together in a bit of a different way, but I feel the same about psilocybin where something about my nurturer kicks in and all of a sudden I'm too aware of everybody else and I'm like, oh wow, I'm having this experience with that person seems to be really struggling. Maybe I should go check on them. It's like, dude, it's not about like they're doing what they got to do.
Right.
So I have the same thing where like a one-on-one or solo experiences are valuable. But I
Right.
do think that when you're playing with higher dose mushrooms, which again that term is even individualized, that having a trip sitter or somebody around in the event you just, hey, can you get me a glass of water? Like just that
Mhm.
kind of thing, and making sure that those little comforts or sanity checks when you need them. I think that's so valuable to have.
Absolutely.
Um, which I'm also assuming is why you do what you do and kind of now offer a bit of a trip sitting and ceremony experience to others. How did that sort of come about? And how did you start talking to other people in your life about like, hey guys, I'm eating 5, 6, 7, 8 grams of mushrooms. Like, how was that received by folks in your life? And was that like, oh wow, I want to try it? Like, how did this come together?
It's taking a different approach for everybody in my life. Like even my mother got involved at one point. I kind of
Oh,
got her
okay.
microdosing, and when it first started to be my interest, and I started to be vocal about it outside of just doing this at the house and not telling anybody. My mother was like curious. Is this something that's going to make you crazy? Is this something bad for you? She's reading all this stuff, and then before it was all said and done, I had her microdosing. She was getting more creative. She curated this room in her house that she had never made before with, all of her paintings and pictures and just this beautiful creative space. And she thanked me one time for introducing her to these mushrooms. She said it allowed her to get her creativity back. And
Oh, that's fun.
so that was cool. And then, on her deathbed, not to get too left or whatever, but this holds a lot of weight for me with psilocybin and feeling like I'm on the right path and approach and all that. She wasn't able to drink any kind of like protein or anything like that because she was very sick. And for days they were trying to get her to drink stuff. I was trying to get her to drink stuff. She wouldn't. And then one day it was maybe the second day before she passed. Not long before she passed. Something told me, and I didn't know if it was the right move or not, but I do know now. Something told me every day she would take her little microdose and some vitamin D and turkey tail. And I put a little bit of the psilocybin in there. I put a little turkey tail and I put a little vitamin D and a little bit of water. And I was able to give it to her. She drank it. And the last words my mother said, she pointed at the cup and she said, "That's good." And it's literally the worst. I mean, the worst. The last thing she said on this earth, was "That's good." So to me, that was like it was an indication that there's something to this, and maybe it's the right thing. You know what I mean? And I use it very respectfully. And when I go in, you know how they say things like if you're playing with things, you have to be very careful because just as like an analogy of like a Ouija board, you got to be careful with a Ouija board. Things may come through, so it's important. Like I feel like, and again, maybe this is not the truth, but I'd rather be protected, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
than drowned. But I go into this experience um, letting the intention be that I invite entities of non-physical entities, to enter of only a positive nature. You know what I mean? Like only positive energy, only positive entities. And again, this could all be in my imagination, and that's okay. But if it's not, I'd like to be prepared. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
it's real.
interesting. You've got cordyceps. I mean, we all know what cordyceps do to insects. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So there could be things I don't understand physically, spiritually, or things like that. So I like to at least make a statement to protect against that in the event that could be the case.
You mentioned the one kind of entity, well, a couple entities, but what other kind of like entities or spirit beings have you encountered during your trips?
I feel like more telepathic. This can sound really crazy, but like telepathic meaning like I'm getting ideas from something
Mhm.
else. I don't personally really see like any kind of creature or entity or being or anything like that. It's more like a presence of something with me, and 9 times out of 10, it's a very strong like presence with authority, like almost like a grandfather. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
it loves you, but it's dead serious.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. That
yes,
makes
it's the
sense.
most serious. Like,
It's a
and
spirit guide. Yeah, I'm here to take care of you, but get your shit together and pay attention kind of
right,
vibe.
right. And before I went to New Zealand, I was thinking like, I had just been through a lot of business, a lot of business, a lot of business, and a lot of things. They just had me on a negative side. It wasn't necessarily the end of the world or anything like that, but I needed to clean out. So I took that time, came all the way out here to do that. And before I went to New Zealand, and when we got there, they had a welcome ceremony. I kind of lost my whole train of thought where we were going with this, but
No,
but
keep
anyway,
going with the welcome ceremony.
so we landed and they had this beautiful welcome ceremony, and I was so thankful. At one point, I went out on the property and just laid in the sun and just kind of bask in it all. But I'm thankful. I had to wash off. This is what I was getting at. I had to get that negative energy out of my system before I went to a foreign land. I felt like
Mhm.
it would be the same as being really sick and knowing it and going there anyway. You know what I mean? I knew that I was going to this beautiful land that's very cultural, and I wanted to cleanse my spirit, cleanse my psyche, and make sure that I went with the right energy and I wasn't taking that over. And I felt like I knew it took me 2 nights to go into this journey, this trip that I was going to do, and then it was 14 hours before I actually jumped on an airplane to go to New Zealand. I drove out and I took 9 grams, and I had to do what I had to do, and it was a terrifying experience, and that's why I say sometimes like they say don't do these when you're in a bad space, and I agree, but when you work and you train and you go and you continue to put in the work, it can tend to get to a point for me personally where that's when it benefits me most. It brings me back to my superpower, and I felt like the way that I explained it to my co-pilot, when we were out there at night, was it was a terrifying experience. Most people would call it a very bad trip. For me, it's exactly what I needed. I woke up so thankful, and it prepared me for my journey to New Zealand. And I thought of it like, the mushroom had nothing against me. I came to the mushroom. It's kind of like the dentist has nothing against you. He's got to pull your tooth, right? He likes you, you like him, everything's good, but this is gonna hurt, right? And that's how this experience was for me. I went in knowing it was gonna hurt, and it hurt. And then when I got through it, I felt absolutely incredible. I went over there with this good energy. We were welcomed with this beautiful welcome ceremony from this tribe, the Maori people. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but Maori and natives to New Zealand. And
Mhm.
after we got cool and we got close with them, they gifted us these stones, the green stones that are a spiritual thing to New Zealand. And it was just it was a beautiful, incredible experience. And I feel like I was meant to do what I had to do before I went there to carry the correct energy.
I like that dentist analogy. I'm going to use that one. That's good.
Yeah, that's
Um,
exactly what it was. It was like, I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. And I'll tell you what, this is interesting part. What brought me out of it, and it might sound a little smart ass when we say it, but we were playing and it brought me out of this bad trip. But my buddy who was with me, Mike, he was he was laying down, and I give him this flashlight because I don't really need it. I can see in the dark out there on the land. But and we got a campfire out there. And at one point, I was still in this like terrifying space, and I stood up and I put more wood on the fire. And I hadn't talked to him in a while. I was just hoping he was feeling a little better than I was. And I put wood on the fire, and he kind of rolls over, looks at me, and says, "Oh wow, you turned the fire back on. Do you need a flashlight?" And I said, "Flashlight?" I said, "I think I need a bouquet of flowers before I need a flashlight. I think it's the last thing I need on the planet right now." I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll drag that campfire over and throw a couple batteries in there if it makes you feel better." We busted out laughing. We laughed, we cried, and then all of a sudden, all the terror was over, and I was back to my superpower, and that's exactly what I came for. So I say that to say sometimes walking through the terror is necessary, but you want to be experienced, you want to train. Like you don't want to go fight Mike Tyson without training first. You know what I mean? So
Tell me a little bit what, I mean, we have this term bad trip, and I think we do talk about that as like, okay, maybe not bad, maybe challenging, right? Difficult, challenging, etc. Um, what does that mean for you? I mean, share as little or as much as you want, but like, what does that moment of like anxiety or fear, what comes up for you in those moments?
I mean, it's like as you mentioned, a lot of anxiety, just like an overwhelming feeling in your body. You know what I mean? Almost like you're bursting out of your skin suit. Maybe you cross ideas of you might die tonight. Maybe you pass through ideas of regret as if you're dying right now. Maybe you think about, these are all mixed things. I'm not saying that this is everything I went through on my last one, but it's like you think about the way you treat people. You might think about the way the world's working currently, and it's just worries come on, and things come to the surface, even from way, way, way in the past. But I feel like doing these journeys can help heal generational. I don't want to say curses. I don't really like that word, but like generational troubles, things that have caused people poverty or unhappiness for generations. I genuinely believe that going deep into these places and having a deep understanding outside of yourself and seeing new perspectives can genuinely help you change the trajectory of your whole lineage. You know what I mean? If you take it serious and go in with respect. But to your question, the bad trips are like they've become. I mean, sometimes I'm in search of the bad trip. Like the other day, that was the most terrifying thing I've been through in about 7 years. I remember the last time I had an experience that was that difficult, and I was on the bathroom floor in a fetal position, like just wondering if it was going to be okay, and it was terrible. And that I don't know which one was worse, but while saying bad, I promise it was necessary. It's what I came for. You know what I mean? So to me, I like to say challenging, hard, difficult, as
Mhm.
opposed to bad, because I knew what I signed up for, and I'm thankful for what I received because that's what I needed to get the perspective that I have this week.
Well, growth is uncomfortable. And I think that's a part of the scariness or fear around psychedelics in general is like, well, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be crazy? Is it going to be scary? Will I be myself again? It's
Mhm.
like, well, you're always yourself no matter what. But, I try to explain too, like, you might shed a layer of yourself that you don't need anymore.
Right.
You might uncover something about yourself that maybe you don't like, and it's now right in front of your face. And what are you going to do about it? So yeah, there's some things that can come up in these types of experiences, but yeah, to your point, like these are meant to be illuminators, to shine a light on areas where we can cut off that generational trauma or change the way that we behave on a daily basis. Sometimes it's a wake up call. Sometimes it's just, I feel like sometimes the medicine is just like cradles you like a baby, and it's not like that at all. I think you do get what you need. Um, and I always think of, I usually do higher dose LSD compared to mushrooms,
Hmm.
but I always call it like rinsing out my brain. I'm like, oh God, I need a good brain rinse. Like I gotta like wash this baby down and get a quick refresh, because that's
Right.
what it feels like in a way. It's like, oh gosh, whatever this stuff was that was clinging to me, maybe I can't even name what it is. I got to just shake that off so I can keep moving forward. Which is exactly what sounds like what you're describing. And like these ego deaths, these mini little ego deaths that are coming through and purging what no longer serves.
Well, I think that's a lot. What this is all about is a metaphorical, spiritual, psychological, slash 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 rebirth.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it might be hard to understand the concept of rebirth and not sound a little crazy, but just seeing yourself from a new perspective, understanding the things that you have to do to mold yourself, evolve, and change, in the right direction for what might have been your goal initially, but you have to circle back to where you started, you know, and it's really a beautiful thing. But I've written something, a passage that I keep pretty sacred to the experience. Like I don't read it publicly or anything like that, but it has a lot to do with, birth, this moment, death, rebirth, repeat, right? It has a lot to do with that. And interestingly enough, most people who come out and take part in that intention, they report back with things that directly reflect what we say in this intention. I wouldn't say it's a prayer because it's not a religious thing. Not that a prayer has to be religious, but I'm careful using that term. But it's more of like it's an intention, and it helps set the tone, and it's very serious. It's also playful, as you mentioned. I've had some experiences where I've laughed for 15 hours and woke up like I've been doing ab workouts all week. And it's beautiful. And to your point, you do get what you need. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes you know what you need, even if you might not allude to that out loud, right? Like
Mhm.
when I came out for this experience I did last week, I know exactly what I needed, and that's exactly what I received. You know.
Absolutely. And so, these you kind of turned these. I don't even want to call it trips because that's not what these are. This you've taken the concept of trip and you've turned it into ceremony, and you do this with others too. Like this is not just something that you're out doing by yourself. You're offering this experience to others so that they can feel they have a safe space. Yeah.
Absolutely, but it's one of those things where it's not an advertised service. It doesn't
Yeah.
cost
Friends
anything.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, friends who it's like, you build it, they will come. You know what I mean? Like people hear me talk about it, they may feel that they see an improvement in my own situation or the way I conduct myself, and they come to me curious, and then we set
Mhm.
up a situation. And usually, if they've never done it before, I'm just strictly a sitter. I provide the place. I provide all the things needed for the situation, and I sit for them. And I usually sit facing the fire. I don't look at them. I don't ask them any questions. Obviously, I'll periodically look over and make sure they're okay or whatever. But we have air mattresses, and we keep our distance. And I tell people, I will not talk to you unless you engage in conversation with me. You know what I mean? If you ask questions that you desire an answer, then I will conversate. Outside of that, I leave you completely alone until you talk to me. I'm just there to make sure you're okay. And the journey is about that person. And if they take it well, it's definitely, as you know, the journeys will get more interesting or a little different when there's another person involved, and you're kind of like co-pilots. You're in this together. So I like to introduce it to someone who's never been down this road, just about them first, and then
Mhm.
I'll jump in with them and ride around and see how that goes.
Yeah.
But,
So working in the music industry, we you hear obviously there's a lot of like correlation between cannabis
mhm.
and creativity in the music industry, but do you see more and more artists looking to psilocybin or other psychedelics, maybe even in microdoses or whatever, to increase their creative capacity? Is that something that might be emerging more and more?
I hear about it, but I personally don't see it. No, I mean, I do see people eating handfuls of mushrooms, at a concert, or everybody's got a chocolate bar. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But are they doing it for creativity? I'm sure somewhere for sure,
yeah.
but I personally don't see that. A lot of the people that I know personally are not really into it. You know what I mean? And that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But most of the people that come out with me are not musicians, interestingly enough. So is it relevant in the culture? I'd say so. I mean, there's definitely musicians who do it, but in the music business, I personally don't see too many people doing like high dose ceremonial psilocybin use. And I use it. You'll never catch me at a concert on mushrooms or something like that.
Yeah. No.
That's not how I use this. So it's like for me, it's like church. It's very sacred. You know what I mean? And it's to be done in a certain place with the gate locked and the phones put up and every single variable thought about. You know. So it's a commitment. I mean, I don't expect everyone to feel comfortable about doing it, but I think when the time's right, people come around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's another thing I hear just, repeatedly is the medicine kind of calls to you. Like you get a nudge or you don't get, like it could be today, it could be 10 years from now. There are some people in their early 20s that feel called to plant medicine. There's people in their 80s that have like lived a completely straight and sober, super hardcore straight edge lifestyle. And they're like, you know what? I'm feeling called to this retreat or whatever. I really do think that the medicine calls you when you're ready. And I also think that it stays with you. I think that it stays with you in a sense and it brings things up over time. Like, I think there are a lot of experiences that can happen during a ceremony that you're like, well, that doesn't make any damn sense at all. Like 2 years later, you're like, oh shit, that thing. Oh,
Mhm.
geez,
Right.
okay, got it. Like, it's like leaving breadcrumbs. Like this, it's like the psilocybin leaves you breadcrumbs to uncover all along your journey. I think that part is so enchanting to me.
Me too. Me too. And I think it's like you said, it calls you. I mean, I've been in bed on a Tuesday night and just not feeling right. And 2:30 a.m. comes around, and finally I get the courage to say, you know what, I'm doing a journey right now. And my fiance look at me crazy and say, "What are you doing? Like, you got to be somewhere in the morning." So I hear you, but I got to get my energy right. I can feel it. It's almost like, I have to. And then I also feel like these things are, you want to take them more like antibiotics as a if this is the path and if this is what you're into, right? Like, I'm not saying every human, but I personally take them like a prescription. Like if I had it my way, I would take them every 2 weeks. That would give me time to integrate, not build a tolerance, and go back and implement the lessons. I receive things from these journeys in my mind that are like, I have to go do things in the physical world. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It I don't feel comfortable going back to the mushroom without having accomplished these assignments, for lack of a better term.
That's a great term. Yeah.
And then I'll tell you one that's kind of coming to the surface right now is there was this one mushroom that I got on tour, and a friend of mine gave me enough to last some months. So I got familiar with this mushroom, and
Mhm.
it was a very healing mushroom. I believe it was a true albino teacher or something. It was definitely a white mushroom, and I don't know if that's what it was or whatever, but that's what I was told. And it really helped me purge. It was a very healing mushroom. It helped me get my mind really right every time I took it. And then I ran out. I reached back out to the guy. He was like, "No, I don't have any idea, dude. That was just a random mushroom I had." I'm like, "Damn." And I kept telling people around me, like, "Man, I got to find this mushroom." I've taken other mushrooms and it's just not the same. You get results or whatever, but it didn't feel as mystical and impactful and, like it would take you within. I couldn't get that feeling from it. It didn't have that grandfather feeling, right? And I was walking through the crowd at a festival that Yellow Wolf was performing at, Summer of Sins, our buddy DJ Highlight puts on. And I was walking through the crowd with my nephew, teaching him how to use a camera and just taking random pictures or whatever. And this guy comes up to me. And it wasn't completely random because I manage Yellow Wolf and his fans sometimes will know the people who work with him and that type of thing from the internet. But it's kind of random still that you'll see what I mean. So we're walking around. This guy approaches me. He said, "Are you Edward Crowe?" I said, "I am. How are you? What's your name?" I went to introduce myself, and he said, "I had some mushrooms for you, and I was told it's very important to get those to you." I was like, "Wow, that's incredible! Like, who's this from, and where are they, so I can give them a hug?" You know what I mean? And so he gave me the mushrooms. I go back and I look, and they look just like the ones that I've been looking everywhere for and trying to find. And I told you my dose is 9 grams, and I only do it with one other person. And I wanted to see if someone could clone this mushroom so we wouldn't run out of it. And how about there was 18.5, 2 doses of 9 grams and enough to clone.
Oh
And
my
this
God.
mushroom found me in the crowd, and I mean, how crazy is that? And then I took the mushroom, had this beautiful, beautiful healing experience with a friend, and at the very end, and this is one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me in these situations. At the very end, I was cleaning up the plastic that they wrapped the firewood in. And I usually come back after, go get some rest, come back, clean the space or whatever. But I still just wanted to clean up the plastic, respect the land, not leave it laying there. And I grabbed one piece of plastic with my left hand, and when I went to grab the other piece with my right hand, I felt something slimy in my hand. And I looked down. I was expecting to see like a slug or something. I look in my hand and there's a white fresh mushroom, and it was the only fresh white mushroom growing in the yard. I told my friend, I said, I'll give you $200 in 2 hours if you can find one more of these in this yard. And it was like the mushroom was winking at me, like, I got you.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, it was incredible, but I still have the mushroom. It's like I kept it, and I always said I haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna get a little ribbon and I'm gonna put first place and hang it right above the mushroom like it's a medal. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that was one for me that was like the hallucination almost crossed over into reality. You know what I mean? With
Yeah,
the
yeah.
finding me and then me grabbing it on the ground, it was all a whole lot. It was really incredible.
Yeah, that's super wild. The coincidences and the connections that would have to happen to bring that bag of mushrooms to you in that exact way at that exact time from someone you've never met before.
You know what I'm saying? That was crazy.
That is crazy.
But it's inspiring when these things happen. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, man, all right, there's something to this, like, yeah. If,
Well, there's
if,
so little magic, I feel like, in the world anymore. Like, truthfully, like, it's hard to, you almost have to look to find those little sparks that they used to be so easy in the like childlike wonder phase. Like, as we grow up and life gets real and shit gets heavy and there's, the bills pile up and whatever, those moments like mean so much. Like, it can just change. It's just like it wakes you back up again to the possibility of magic and wonder in life, and you're like, oh yeah, the universe does have me taken care of. Like, I am safe, and I am on the map. Like, I do matter and I am okay. Like, that's what those things always do for me. They just like remind me that, like, yeah, okay, you're good, you're doing the right thing, you're a good you're a good person, life is good. Like, keep on
Absolutely.
keeping on.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%. And I feel like you made me think of this. There's something like, how below the ground they have the mycelial network. We all know what it does. It feeds the information to the forest of harms and gives it information. I have this thing that came to me in a trip. And, again, it could just be the imagination, but it feels like there's a psychic mycelial network above ground that kind of brings together these people in the same frequency. You know what I mean? When you do these medicines, because not just mushrooms, there's plenty of different entheogens available.
Mhm.
I feel like there's something that connects those people in that frequency, like you said. The creative, like childlike magic. It's important to nurture that and carry that throughout life. And I think part of nurturing that is remaining a student. Not only of the mushroom, but just of life, daily life in general, and finding the magic in the everyday things. You know,
Mhm.
and that's something that definitely has come back through the mushrooms for me is just wonder and amazement, and being impressed by nature and little things.
Yeah, agree. I remember, my first mushroom trip was like a lot of people. I was a teenager out, doing shit I probably shouldn't be doing, end up eating more mushrooms than I probably should have because I didn't know. And I remember that night getting home somehow, and I'm sitting in my front yard. I live at home. My folks are sleeping inside, and the sprinklers are on. It's like the sprinklers have come on, and it's these twilight hours. The moon is bright, and I'm just like looking at the beads of water on the bright green grass. Like, this simple moment. And my dad comes out, he's getting ready, he goes to work super duper early, and he comes out and I'm just sitting on the porch, probably like smoking a cigarette, just watching the grass. And, my dad is hip to the game. He understands that this is not just up early watching the sun, he's like, all right. And he just sits down and he starts looking at the grass with me. And he's like, so what are we looking at? It's like, I don't know. I'm just overcome with this emotion. I'm like, I don't know. Like, the grass is so beautiful. He's like, yeah, you keep staring at it, you can just really watch it grow. You have a good one, kiddo, and just, pats me on the back and heads out to work. And I just sat there, watched the sun come up. But I remember, like, going to sleep and waking up and going back outside because I just wanted to see the grass again.
Right.
And it was different. Obviously it didn't have the same luster it had had before, but I remember that, like, rather than me being like, oh man, I can only experience that when I'm high,
Right.
it really made me realize, like, just shut up and listen and watch and just be a student of the universe in greater ways, not just watching the grass, but all the things, like just take a minute, just stop and take a minute and be quiet and listen and learn from the world around you. And you know, it was years before I learned how to use those types of things in ceremony or purpose, but I'll never forget that moment because it just turned something on in me that maybe I was already starting to lose from that childlike wonder. And, you know, now that I
What's
think about it, I'm going to have to ask my dad if he remembers that. Be like, hey, you remember the whole grass incident or no? Okay.
I remember you made me think of this. I remember one time coming home on LSD. I don't think it was the first time, but my mom was kind of like asking me what was going on. She could tell she was hip to the way I was acting. Wasn't really regular. And I remember mistaking a refrigerator for my bedroom and opening a refrigerator door and going to walk inside. She knew then, kind of like your dad knew when you were staring at the grass, you know.
Yeah.
So try to walk in the refrigerator.
Oh, God bless him. God.
Mhm.
Oh,
Full
Edward.
circle. It was cool. Like full circle. I took my mom outside and did DMT, and there was we were laying on the ground looking up at the sky. Her eyes were closed, and I remember thinking, "Oh man, this might not be good." I just gave my mom DMT. She's not saying nothing. She doesn't, or she didn't do drugs, right? She
Yeah.
wasn't like this was. It took me a little while to explain to her. She saw me making improvements and being kinder and a lot of positive changes in my personality to get to the point where she was willing to take part. I remember her laying there and she was quiet and just sitting still. And I'm like, oh man, I hope I didn't mess up my mom. And then all of a sudden, she just starts going like trying to hold in this laugh. And I was like, all right, that's a good sign. And then she just bust out laughing. And she goes, get in here with me. And I was like, well, mama, don't really work like that. I was like, I started filling up the bag. I was like, here I come. So then I hit the bag and lay down beside her. And then come to find out later, she was holding the laughing the whole time. She was like looking at these faces in the sky at the sun and said that she didn't want to disrespect them by laughing at them. But then they let her know that's what you're here for. So then
Yeah.
she took the laughter out. But I thought that was funny. Like in that moment, she looked over at me and said, "Get in here."
Yeah, yeah. You
Like,
gotta
what
get
do
in
you
there.
work
You
like
gotta
that?
get in
Like,
on
hold on,
that.
give me a minute. I got you. Yeah, that was an interesting one.
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's a brave move too for someone that's like not experienced with substances. Be like, yeah, I'll rip some DMT. Let's try it. That you're the second person I've talked to actually that's told me that. I did another sharing experience maybe a year ago, and it was like, yeah, same thing. He'd been experimenting with like LSD and DMT and finally like opened up to his super straight edge dad about it. And his dad's like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Let's go. I'm like, wow, I love that energy. Like
Oh, that's killer.
the bravery and curiosity. I love that. Like so many people, I feel like it's like a slow lead up, like what we were saying, like, you start smoking weed, you experiment with XYZ and eventually
Right.
like stumble your way. But I love
Right.
the stories of people that just like, come out of church, having never, it's like living in the Bible Belt, like never
Right.
touched a substance a day in their life. And they're like, you know what? Today
Just
feels like
jump
a
off the porch.
good day for ayahuasca. Like, what?
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
amazing.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
But I think that also speaks to like, psychedelics are not just for like this woo woo spiritual community. It's really where like spirit meets science. Like you cannot deny the science that we have backing what a lot of these substances, especially psilocybin, are doing to our brains.
Right.
And when you experience these things, you also cannot deny that there is a spiritual element of sorts that is taking place here and an undercurrent of the world and universe that we don't see in everyday life. So, I mean, I love that convergence. I think that is what's going to propel these things forward in a way that more people will become curious, and then we'll have better and greater access to these plants for everyone. That's at least like what I'm dreaming of.
It's very well said. I like how you put that with the science and spirituality, and you're right. There is more to it than the whole woo woo thing. And I think it's, I mean, I could prove that to anybody who would come down and sit at this circle. I always say, within the symbol, in front of the fire, deep in the forest, to find my mind, right? And so I take it a little a little left sometimes. I put like a quartz triangle in front of a fire and had the blessing and meditate. And I mean, I definitely treat it very ceremonial. And
Mhm.
I spoke to a tribal leader about it and explained to her that, I have native in my blood on my father's side, but I don't talk to my father. I don't know much about him. I don't know a percentage or anything like that. So I'm just acting off instinct. And, a lot of times I feel like the Westerners, we get all of us, you, me, everybody included. Um, we get looked at funny and people point at us and say, "Oh, what do you think, you're a shaman, this and that?" And my answer would be no, absolutely not. I feel like a shaman would be the same as saying I'm an Indian chief. It's an indigenous term, but I'm acting from instinct and this feels right. This feels more right than what I do in the suburbs. You know what I mean? It feels like it's truly from my spirit. And when I spoke this to this lady, this tribal leader, she told me, she said, "You're being guided." She was like, "Keep doing what you're doing. Everything you're saying adds up and makes sense." And I said, "I do borrow. Like when it's time for ceremony or ritual, I borrow from things that I love. I borrow from things I respect, but I borrow them with respect. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't claim that they're mine." And I mean, she got teary eyed. You know what I mean? It was like, "You're being guided." So I took that as an indication that, again, whether it's within or without, what difference does it make? If we're acting better in this reality, in this world, and giving more to this society, and bringing love and respect and attention to positive things, hey man, it doesn't matter if it's from within or without.
I love
And I think
that.
that's one of the crazy arguments of all this. Like, that's why I feel it's necessary to be crystal clear that I don't believe anything. You know what I mean? I'm just here for the ride. You know?
Well, that also puts you in a really unique place where like neutrality is really powerful, especially because we live in a world right now that is so much like, pick something, what do you believe in? If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And why aren't you out fighting XYZ and blah blah blah? Just pick and divide. But when you can be neutral and observe and be open to the idea that, hey, I don't know everything, I have certain beliefs and I'm learning and I'm changing all the time,
Mhm.
but I don't pick. I'm not going to align or choose anything with certainty, because I am just this like one human here on this earth for this one moment in time. Like, it's also just not that serious, everyone. We need to like just remember, like, we're all human beings. We're all here to learn and grow and do that in community,
Right,
hopefully.
right, right. Absolutely.
Oh,
Mhm.
um, this has been super fun. I know we've been chatting for a minute here. I just want to ask you one last thing before we bounce. And um, what would you say to somebody that's like feeling called to work with plant medicines, but has that like, fear of, well, what if it's bad? I don't want to have a bad time. Like, what's your last little nugget of advice to help push somebody into the direction that they feel called?
I would just say, as you mentioned, make sure you have someone who's going to sit for you, someone who's responsible. Make sure that your environment is fully thought out and protected. You're safe. There's no weapons. I would keep electronics out of the way. Now I'm speaking high dose, so this may sound a little extreme. It's like I'm going all the way there. But go in with the right headspace to begin with, work your way up. You know what I mean? And then, in my opinion, it can become a medicine that you can use anytime. If you're feeling joyful, use it and it may amplify that and tell you things to be more joyful about. And if times are rough, it may help nurture your mind and your spirit back to calibrate you to goodness, right? But it's a matter of training and being prepared, ready, and safe. So for me, safety is most important, because you can take these, wander into the street, get hit by a car, or you fall off the roof, or whatever.
Yeah,
They can be very dangerous, but so can alcohol. So
very true. Very true.
yep.
Okay. All right. I hope anybody out there wondering, can it change your life? Is it good for you? Is it worth being scared? It's worth being scared.
Hey, guess what? I'm scared right now. I swear to God, next trip I take, right this moment, I'm frightened. So is it worth being scared? Absolutely, it's worth being scared.
Yeah.
You face your fears, and that's where you become a champion, whether that's physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. Face your fears.
Face your
As
fears.
long as you're safe. Safety is key. Mental
Mhm.
and physical safety.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. It's been really awesome to chat with you today.
Thank you so
I
much for having me.
appreciate all your positivity and messages for our community.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me, Holly. It's been a really good conversation.